Most tradies treat the tray as dead space. Gear slides around, something falls out on the highway, and you spend 10 minutes every morning digging through it just to find what you need. The tray is the most important part of your work ute, and most of them are running at about 20% of their potential. In this video, 7 practical upgrades that change that. We are going from the basics right up to the single addition that will make the biggest difference to your working day. Stick around for number 1. Rubber tray mat. Before you bolt anything to your tray, the first thing worth putting down is a rubber mat. It sounds basic, but it's the foundation everything else sits on. Without one, every tool you set in the tray slides straight to the back when you brake, stacks up against the tailgate, and takes a beating every time you hit a rough bit of road. Over time, the tray floor takes damage too, scratches, dents, and surface corrosion, which quietly eats into your resale value. A good heavy-duty rubber mat changes all of that. The ribbed or checkerplate surface creates friction against your cargo, so gear stays roughly where you put it without needing to be tied down every single time. It also absorbs impact from drop tools and reduces that metallic rattling noise that comes through the cabin on corrugated roads. What to look for: minimum 3.5 mm thick rubber, UV rated, and oil-resistant compound. Vehicle-specific molded mats are the cleaner option. Brands like Grunt 4x4 do model-specific fits for Hilux, Ranger, D-Max, and others, typically in the $180 to $240 range. Generic roll mats cut to size are available for around $80 to $100 and do the job on trayback setups where a perfect fit matters less. The honest limitation: a mat alone won't stop cargo from moving if you're carrying loose materials without tie-downs. It reduces the problem. It doesn't eliminate it. But as a starting point before any other upgrade, it's the right first move. Rated tie-down anchor points. Most factory tray setups in Australia are light on anchor points, or the ones they include are positioned poorly for real-world use. If you're tying gear down against the side rails rather than straight down to the tray floor, you're fighting physics every time you brake or corner hard. Adding a set of properly rated recessed D-ring anchor points to your tray floor gives you fixed, low-profile attachment points in exactly the locations that work for your typical load. Recessed rings fold flat when you're not using them, so they don't catch on gear or create trip hazards when you're loading and unloading. The thing to check before you buy is the lashing rating, not just the brake load. In Australia, the National Transport Commission's Load Restraint Guide specifies that tie-down points need to be rated for the lashing force, not just dead weight. A set of 4 heavy-duty zinc-plated recessed D-rings rated to 2,000 pounds lashing each will run you $40 to $75 from suppliers like Trailer Solutions Australia or similar. If you want stainless for coastal work, budget closer to $80 to $120 for a set. Installation matters here. These need to be bolted through the tray floor with a backing plate on the underside, not just self-tapped in. If your tray is aluminium, use stainless hardware to prevent galvanic corrosion at the contact point. The limitation: anchor points are only as useful as the straps you pair them with. Cheap cam buckle straps from the servo won't cut it on a load that matters. Get ratchet straps with a working load rating that matches your typical haul. Underbody toolboxes. Here's space that almost every trayback ute is wasting completely: the area underneath the tray, between the chassis rails. It's dead air on most work utes, and it's the perfect place to store tie-down straps, recovery gear, spare fittings, or anything else you need regular access to without it taking up tray floor space. Underbody toolboxes, sometimes called undertray toolboxes, mount directly beneath the tray floor and open downward. A good one has a safety chain on the lid so it doesn't drop on your shins when you open it. They're made from aluminium or steel, come in single or paired configurations, and are sized to suit the gap between your specific chassis rails. A pair of 750 mm aluminium underbody boxes will set you back roughly $340 to $440 depending on finish and brand. If you only need one side, single units start around $200. Suppliers like Boximus, EZ Toolbox, and Rackman all stock options that ship Australia-wide. Installation requires drilling mounting points into the tray subframe, straightforward for anyone handy, or a couple of hours at a tray shop. The limitation is clearance. On some lift-kitted utes or setups with auxiliary fuel tanks, the available underbody depth is reduced. Measure the gap between your tray floor and the top of your wheels before ordering, and confirm the box depth won't foul on anything underneath when you're at full suspension travel off-road. Ladder rack. If your trade involves carrying lengths of material, timber, pipe, conduit, steel, ladders, a ladder rack is the difference between one trip and 3. Without one, Long lengths have to lay diagonally across the tray floor, which eats your entire load area, makes tying down a headache, and typically means you can't carry much else alongside them. A rear removable ladder rack bolted into your tray corners, paired with the front headboard rack that most traybacks already have, gives you a dedicated overhead plane for long material. The load sits up and clear of the tray floor, which stays usable for other gear. Standard rack heights for dual cab setups put the carrying surface at roughly 960 mm, which clears toolboxes and side-mounted canopies depending on your configuration. For supply only, galvanized steel ladder racks start around $280 to $390 for a rear unit. Alloy versions run $340 to $430. Fitting is typically an extra $80 to $90 at a tray specialist. Look for a unit that's ADR compliant and WHS approved for worksite use. It matters if you're ever under scrutiny from a workplace safety inspector. The honest caveat: check your load rating carefully. A standard rear rack rated to 100 kilograms evenly distributed sounds like plenty until you're loading structural steel or multiple lengths of pipe. If you regularly haul heavy material overhead, look specifically at heavy-duty racks with a rated load spec, not just a marketing claim. Tray work light. Most tradies have been there. You're finishing a job as the light drops, you need something from the tray, and you're using your phone torch to dig around in the dark. It's one of those small daily friction points that adds up across a full working week. A tray-mounted LED work light, wired back to a cab-controlled switch or tied into the reverse light circuit, changes your after-dark working situation completely. A good 20-watt to 40-watt LED light bar mounted on the rear of the headboard, or a pair of work lights on the tray sides, floods the entire tray with usable light. LED draws almost nothing from your battery compared to old halogen work lights, and modern units are rated IP67 or better for dust and water resistance, so they'll handle whatever an Australian worksite throws at them. Basic tray-mounted LED work lights start from around $60 to $120 per unit for a quality 20W to 30W light. Wiring is where the cost varies. A basic switch and fuse setup is a sub-$50 DIY job if you're comfortable under dashboard. If you're getting it done at an auto electrician, budget $150 to $250 for a clean install with proper weatherproof connectors and a cab switch. Worth flagging: if you wire lights directly off the reverse circuit, they only come on when the UTE is in reverse, which isn't always what you want. A dedicated cab switch gives you control regardless of gear selection. That's the version worth doing. Headboard toolbox, crossdeck or gull wing. A crossdeck toolbox mounted across the front of the tray, sitting on top of the headboard, is what separates a tradesperson's UTE from a tradesperson's UTE that actually runs like a system. This is where your regularly used hand tools, fasteners, charger cables, first aid kit, and job essentials live. Secure, weather-sealed, lockable, and positioned right behind the cab where you access it constantly without having to climb into the tray or dig through a pile of gear. A gullwing-style box opens from both sides simultaneously, which is useful when your tray sides are loaded and you're working around the vehicle. Quality aluminium crossdeck boxes for standard dual-cab tray widths typically sit between $400 and $800 depending on depth, lid configuration, and locking mechanism. Brands like Alabama Toolboxes, Macca's, or your local tray manufacturer's own line are worth specifying over cheap import options. The quality of the lid seal and the whaletail lock is where budget boxes fail in Australian conditions. A leaking lid after a heavy downpour means a wet set of power tools, which is a much more expensive problem than the price difference between a decent box and a cheap one. One limitation to plan for: a crossdeck box positioned at headboard height will limit how you load sheet material flat onto the tray. If you regularly carry full sheets of ply or steel plate, check that the box height doesn't interfere with your load length before you buy. Canopy. Every item on this list makes your tray more useful. This one changes what your UTE fundamentally is. A well-fitted canopy turns the tray from an open carrying platform into a secure, weather-protected workspace that goes with you to every job. Tools locked away out of sight. Materials protected from rain, sun, and dust. No more covering gear with a top and hoping it holds on the highway. No more coming back to site and finding someone's helped themselves to what's in the back. In Australia's trades market, aluminium canopies are the working standard for anyone who doesn't need constant full tray access. They integrate directly with your tray headboard, typically come with internal track systems for shelving and drawer fit-outs, and handle the kind of punishment a daily work UTE takes better than fiberglass alternatives. Fiberglass canopies are lighter and color-matched from the factory, but they're more suited to touring or light commercial use, not a tradie hammering corrugated tracks to remote sites 5 days a week. Fitted aluminium canopy prices in Australia vary considerably based on size, configuration, and whether you're adding shelving or drawer inserts. A plain aluminium canopy for a standard dual cab tray typically starts from around $2,000 to $3,500 fitted. Add drawers, internal lighting, and a central locking integration, and total fit-out costs commonly run from $4,000 to $7,000 or more depending on how you spec it. That's a real investment, but consider what you're protecting. The combined value of the tools a working trader carries is often well above that, and a locked canopy is the only meaningful security solution for a trayback ute parked on a street overnight. The limitation is access. Once you fit a canopy, you give up the ability to crane load from above or carry oversized loads that sit proud of the tray rails. If your work occasionally needs that kind of access, a canopy with a central roller door instead of side hinge doors gives you some flexibility. Plan your canopy configuration around what you actually carry before you commit to the build. So there's your tray, built out from the ground up. Start with the rubber mat. Protect the floor and give your gear something to grip. Add rated anchor points so your loads are properly secured, not just hoped in place. Use the underbody space for the gear that doesn't need to be inside the tray itself. A ladder rack for long material keeps your tray floor clear for everything else. Get your tray lit up so you're not fumbling in the dark after sundown. A cross-deck toolbox puts your daily use gear within arm's reach. And if your tools are worth protecting, and they are, a fitted canopy is the upgrade that makes everything else more secure. None of these are about making your ute look the part. Every single one comes back to time saved, gear protected, and fewer headaches across a working week. That's the measure that matters for a tradie. If you're already running a canopy and want to know the best way to set up the drawer system inside it, that's the next video worth watching.